The staple food that we consume is called as the cereals, and cereals have been classified as the first in the basic five food groups. These are a rich source of carbohydrates. However, they also contain protein, minerals, and vitamins. Let us see the introduction of the cereals. The cereals are the grains which are nothing but the seeds of the grass family. They are the seeds belonging to the grass family. The word cereal is derived from Ceres, which means the Roman goddess of grain. The principal cereal crops that are commonly cultivated, particularly in India, are the rice, wheat, maize, cholam or corn, jowar, makacholam, ragi, kelvaragu, and bajra, kambu. These are the common cereals that are cultivated in large scale in India. The term cereal is not limited to these crops alone, but they also include the products that are derived from the cereals, such as the flours, like the rice flour or the wheat flour that is obtained from the cereal is also called as the cereal. The meals that are the broken grains of the corn or the wheat, they are called as the meals. And bread prepared from wheat, extruded products such as vermicelli or noodles, they are the extruded products prepared from wheat, and pasta, that is also a product that is prepared from wheat. Though they are all the processed products that are obtained from the cereals, they are also included under the cereals. So we have the crops that are called as the cereals, and along with that, the processed products obtained from the cereals are also referred to as the cereals. We shall now see the structure of the cereals. The overall structure of all the cereal grain is basically similar. It can be rice or wheat or maize, ragi, bajra. It can be any type of cereal, but the basic structure of the cereal is the same. They consist of three parts. They are the endosperm, bran, and the germ. These are the three parts of the cereals. And when a question is asked about the structure of the cereal grains, referring to whether it is bajra or ragi or maize, you have to give the structure as the general one that will be discussed now. So it has three parts: the endosperm, bran, and the germ. The percentage of the endosperm, bran, and germ of the cereals are: endosperm consists of 83% of the cereal grain, bran consists of 14.5%, and 2.5% of the cereal grain is the germ. You can see in these images the structure of the grains. The outer portion is called as the bran, and inside the bran you have the endosperm, and in the lower portion you have the germ. This is the sketch of the grain structure. Let us see the structure of the cereals one by one. Bran, or otherwise it is called as the pericarp. The outer layer or epidermis of the cereals consists of thin-walled, long and rectangular cells. So in the outer portion of the cereals, we have the epidermis. Epi means outer. Dermis is the skin. So epidermis means it is present in the outermost layer of the cells, and they have cells that are thin-walled, they are long, and they are rectangular in shape. Next to the epidermis, that is outermost part, you have the epidermis, After the outer part, that is below the epidermis, we have the hypodermis, or in the inner part of the epidermis you have the hypodermis, and it is of varying thickness. That is, the number of layers of cells in the hypodermis may vary. The innermost layer is called as the pericarp. So there are three layers that are told here. The outermost is the epidermis. The innermost is the pericarp. Between the pericarp and the epidermis, you have the hypodermis. The pericarp, it tears during the ripening of the seed. When the seeds mature, when they are fully grown, the pericarp will tear, and in the mature grain, they are represented by a layer of branching hypha-like cells called as the tube cells. So when the grain matures, the pericarp will tear, and they will appear as hypha-like cells. And these hypha-like cells are called as the tube cells. Here you can see very clearly the structure of the pericarp. The pericarp here is divided into the outer pericarp and the inner pericarp. In the outer pericarp, the outermost, the exterior part, there are hair-like cells, or it is called as the hairs of brush. Below that you have the epidermis. Below that is the hypodermis, and below that you have the mesocarp, and then you can see the hypha-like cells which are called as the tube cells. This is how the pericarp of any cereal grain will be present. The pericarp of wheat, that is the outermost layer of wheat, is thin and papery. It is very thin and looks like a paper. While in sorghum, that is in the maize, the pericarp consists of several layers. In wheat, there is only one layer, whereas in sorghum, there are several layers of cells, and these layers, they are pigmented. Pigmented means they have color. They have a color, and therefore it is called as pigmented. The outer surface is covered with a waxy cuticle. So the outer surface of the maize, you can see palapalan irukum. So that is called as the waxy cuticle. The seed coat or testa is a thin single or double layer. The seed coat is otherwise called as the testa, and this is made up of a single layer or a double layer of cells. The inner layer of the testa, so I told you there are two layers. The inner layer of the testa of wheat is deeply pigmented, means it has color. The inner layer of the testa is colored, and this will give the grain its characteristic color. All of us know that the wheat grains are golden brown in color, and this color is because of the pigment that is present in the inner layer of the testa. Next to the testa, that is in the inner portion of the testa, there is a layer which is called as the hyaline layer, which is colorless. The hyaline layer is colorless, and it also does not have a perfect cellular structure. You can see here, I told you the testa or the seed coat. Below the testa or the seed coat is the hyaline layer. Okay. Next is the aleurone cell layer. The endosperm, which is the majority or major portion of the cereal, is the endosperm. This endosperm is surrounded by one or more layer of cells which are called as the aleurone. In wheat, the aleurone is a single layer of thick-walled cubical cells. So what is the size, what is the shape of the cells? They are cubical, means square shaped, and they are also having a thick wall, and it has only a single layer. In wheat, the aleurone is a single layer, and the cells are thick walled, and the type of cells are cubical, and this will constitute 7% of the grain weight. The cells contain, that is, the aleurone cells contain 20% of protein, 20% of oil, 20% mineral, and 20% of water. That is the composition of the aleurone layer. The cells present in the aleurone are also rich in nicotinic acid, which is nothing but niacin, a B vitamin. The aleurone cells also contain tiny granules of phytic acid. They are called as the phytate, which are chemical compounds. These phytic acid is present along with some amount of protein. So the aleurone layer can be a single layer. They are thick walled and they have cubical cells. You can see here the aleurone layer that is present in the in this portion. You can see the aleurone layer, and this aleurone layer surrounds the endosperm. And in this structure, this is a simpler structure, simpler version. You can find the aleurone layer that is present between the endosperm and the hull or the pericarp. So the aleurone layer is present here, and this is covering the entire endosperm of the cereal grains. Aleurone is 2 to 3 layers thick in rice. There are variations from one cereal to another cereal. In wheat, there was only one single layer, whereas in rice, there are 2 to 3 layers, and the cells are rectangular. In wheat, it was cubical, but here it is rectangular with thin cell walls. There it was thick cell walls, and here in rice, it is thin cell walls. This aleurone layer surrounds the starchy endosperm. So, the composition of the endosperm is starchy. In rice, the aleurone layer extends from the upper end of the embryo to its base. The aleurone layer and the covering external to it comprises the bran. So the aleurone layer together with the outer portion, it is called as the bran. The next part of the cereal grain is called as the endosperm. The endosperm consists of cells of various sizes, shapes, and they have different composition. Endosperm is the innermost part of the cereal grain, and in the innermost part of the cereal grain, there are different types of cells, and these different size of cells, they have different shapes, and they also have different composition. The endosperm consists mainly of starch and protein. So what is present in the endosperm? Starch and protein are present. The starch is in the form of spherical granules. They are ball-like. They are spherical granules which are single granules. They are tightly packed and embedded in a matrix of protein. So the starch granules that are present in the endosperm, they are present in a matrix. So the matrix is a layer. So the layer is made up of protein, and in that layer, the starch granules are embedded. You can see here the endosperm, which is the major portion of the cereal grain that is present between the bran and the germ. The size and shape of the starch granules in the endosperm vary from one cereal to another cereal. So the size of the starch granule and the shape of the starch granule will change from one cereal to another cereal. In rice, the size and the shape will be different. In wheat, it will be different. In maize, it will be different. The starch granules will be different from one cereal to another cereal. The granules in wheat, barley, maize, and sorghum are very simple, whereas the starch granules that are present in the rice are compound. Up to 60 granules are compounded together in the rice. The starch granules, they stick to one another and they form a compound in the rice. The next portion is called as the germ. The germ is otherwise called as embryo. What is embryo? Embryo is the portion from where the root and the shoot of the plant is present. Right? It is from here the germination will take place. So that is why it is called as the germ. And this consists of many parts. The germ is separated from the endosperm by a layer called as scutellum. So between the endosperm and the germ, there is a layer which is called as the scutellum. The scutellum will mobilize the stored food from the endosperm and it will transmit to the embryo. What is the embryo? Embryo is where the root and the shoot is present in a rudimentary form. And when the grain germinates, it will need food. When the grain germinates, it requires nutrients. And during that stage, the scutellum will mobilize the nutrients from the endosperm to the embryo. The germ and the scutellum are rich in protein as well as fat. Most of the B vitamins in the grain are present in the scutellum. You can see here the germ portion of the grain. This is the germ portion. It is here you can see the plumule and the radicle. Plumule is nothing but the shoot and radicle is nothing but the root. So this will develop into the shoot of the plant. Shoot na that which is present above the ground is called as the shoot and that which will grow below the ground is called as the root. And here you can see the scutellum. This is the scutellum and this is the endosperm. When this portion germinates, the scutellum will take the nutrients that are present here and it will provide to the germ. So this is the role of the scutellum. We saw the general structure of the cereal grains. Now we shall see the wheat grain. We are not saying rice first, but we are taking wheat first because wheat is the cereal that is consumed by the population, by majority of the population in the world. When we see the people who are consuming the wheat grains, the wheat will occupy the first position because when we consider the entire world, wheat is the major food that is consumed by majority of the population. So wheat belongs to the genus Triticum and there are 30,000 species. If I ask you the botanical name of wheat, you would say it is Triticum vulgare, right? But you should understand there are 30,000 species in wheat, which means there are 30,000 varieties in wheat. The kernel of wheat, that is one grain, is called as the kernel. The grain of the wheat is called as the kernel. The kernel of wheat is 1/8 to 1/4 inch long. The length is 1/8 to 1/4 inch. In some kinds of wheat, the tip of each kernel is covered by stiff hairs. So when you take a wheat grain and observe it closely, you can see that the tip of the wheat will have small, minute hair-like structures. They are called as the brush. Wheat grains are ovoid in shape. So they are not exactly oval, but something like a oval shape. So it is called as ovoid and it is rounded in both the ends. So both the ends, the upper end as well as the lower end of the wheat grain will be rounded. So this is the wheat grain, the crop, wheat grain that has been grown in the field. So this is the structure of a single wheat grain. You can see the hairs that are present in the tip of the grain And this structure is not exactly oval but somewhat oval in shape, so we are calling it as ovoid. And like any other cereal, it will have the bran, the endosperm and the germ. We shall see the composition, that is the nutrients that are present in the wheat grain. Carbohydrates. The carbohydrates are present in the endosperm, germ as well as the bran. Now we know what the endosperm is. Endosperm is the inner portion, and inside that you have the germ, and the bran is the outer portion of the grain. The carbohydrates that are present in these portions will be discussed now. The starch content present in the endosperm is about 95.8, in germ 31.5 and bran 14.1. So much, this is the percentage of the starch that is present in each part of the wheat grain. Sugar, 1.5% is present in the endosperm, 36.4. The highest is present in the germ, and the bran contains 7.6%. The amount of cellulose in the endosperm is very less, 0.3%. In germ, it is 16.8%. The bran, the outermost portion, has the highest amount of cellulose, which is 35.2%. The amount of hemicellulose. Cellulose, hemicellulose, these are the compounds that are usually present in the cell wall. And the hemicellulose content in the endosperm is 2.4%. In germ, it is 15.3%. And in the bran, the amount of hemicellulose is the highest, which is 43.1%. Carbohydrates are there in the wheat, and proteins are also present in the wheat. Though it is a cereal, we know that cereals are rich in carbohydrates. Though it is a major source of carbohydrates, they also contain other nutrients. They contain protein, fat, vitamin and mineral also. And wheat contains protein. The protein content of wheat is given here. It has albumin 5 to 10%. Albumin is a protein. Globulin 5 to 10%. Prolamine 40 to 50%. And glutalin 40 to 50%. Albumin, globulin, prolamine and glutalin. They are all the proteins that are present in the wheat. The important proteins of wheat are glutalin and gliadin. They are the important proteins that are present in the wheat grain. And the mixture of these two proteins, that is, the mixture of glutalin and gliadin, are known as gluten. Gluten is very important as far as the wheat grains are concerned. Gluten forms 90% of the total protein of wheat. Glutenuடைய content in wheat is 90%. When this protein gluten is hydrated means when there is addition of water to this gluten. What is gluten? Gluten is the combination of gliadin and glutalin. When it is hydrated, that is when water is added, the gluten will become elastic. The gluten will become elastic. So that is why when we prepare chapatis and we take the wheat flour, add salt and we add water to it. And when we mix the wheat flour, we are able to stretch the wheat flour, right? You cannot stretch the rice flour. You cannot stretch the maize flour. But you can stretch the wheat flour. This is because of the elastic property that is established when the gluten is hydrated. So gluten is the protein. When the protein gluten is hydrated, that is when water is added, it becomes elastic. So that is why we are able to stretch the wheat dough. The strength of the wheat flour depends upon the quantity of gluten present. So the strength of the wheat flour depends upon the amount or the quantity of gluten that is present in the wheat flour. We shall now see the classification of wheat. The wheat can be broadly classified into three groups from the milling and baking point of view. And they are classified into three types. They are the soft wheat, hard wheat, and the durum wheat. The soft wheat contains 8 to 9% of protein. The products that are produced from the soft wheat is the flour, wheat flour. And this wheat flour is used in the preparation of biscuits, cakes, cookies, crackers, and the breakfast cereals. Hard wheat contains higher amount of protein, which is 10 to 12%. The products that are prepared from the hard wheat are the flour and the semolina. Semolina is ravai. And these two are used in the preparation of bread, macaroni products. Durum wheat has the highest amount of protein. 13 to 15% of protein is present in durum wheat, and the product produced from durum wheat is semolina ravai, and this is used in the preparation of macaroni products. So the wheat has carbohydrates, they also have protein, and fat is also present in wheat, fat or the lipids. The lipid content of the wheat kernel is about 3%. The fat content of wheat is 3%. While that of wheat flour, it is reduced to 1.88%. Crude gluten. So the gluten is the protein we know, and this crude gluten can be prepared by washing the dough, taking it in a cloth and dipping it in water, squeezing the cloth and removing the starch. So you first have to prepare the dough. So wheat flour has to be taken, water should be added, and this has to be prepared into a dough. So this dough can be taken in a piece of cloth. You cover it with a cloth and you dip it in water and you keep washing the dough. And while you wash, the starch molecules will be removed and it will contain about 8 to 10% lipids. That is, the gluten, which is a protein, will contain 8 to 10% of lipids. And enzymes are also present. The enzymes that are present in the wheat grains are the amylases, proteases, lipases, lipooxidases, phenol, aromatic amine oxidase, and peroxidase. Apart from different nutrients, enzymes are also present in the wheat grain. Let us see the composition or the nutrients that are present in different parts of the wheat kernel. The different parts of the wheat kernel are the endosperm, germ, and the bran. Protein 70 to 75% is present in the endosperm, 8% in germ, and 19% of the protein is present in the bran. Thiamine is also present. Thiamine is nothing but the B vitamin. The amount of thiamine present is 3% in the endosperm, 64% in the germ, and 33% in the bran. Riboflavin is also a B vitamin. 32% is present in the endosperm, 26% in germ, and 42% in bran. Niacin is again a B vitamin. 12% is present in the endosperm, 2% in germ, and 86% is present in the bran. Pyridoxine is also a B vitamin. 6% is present in the endosperm, 21% in the germ, and 73% in the bran. Pantothenic acid, 43% is present in the endosperm, 7% in the germ, and 50% in the bran.